gracious hosts, unique lodging, and tasty cuisine. New Mexico bed and breakfasts are New Mexico true. Our innkeepers are as special as New Mexico, and we're sharing their stories. Read about them and plan your trip at nmbba.org. Hey, everybody, we are super excited to go back to Albuquerque, New Mexico to chat with Steve and Kathy Hiatt, who are the owners and innkeepers of Bottger Mansion, and they are right in Old Town and right by Route 66. In fact, they have a Route 66 room that overlooks Route 66. And being in Old Town, it's so cool. You can park and just walk to restaurants and shops, see all the neon signs of Route 66, and they're also very close to the Botanical Garden and the aquarium. And it's just a great place to stay and a lot of history. So go to their website, bottger.com. It's Bottger, bottger.com. And all the links, including the New Mexico Bed and Breakfast Association, which is nmbba.org, they are all in the show notes. So welcome back, Steve and Kathy. How are you?
Oh, doing well. And you?
Oh, doing good. We're in the West. We're in Tucson, so not far. So we're like this big blue sky, sunny weather. We're happy as punch. What's the weather like in Albuquerque?
Oh, it's about 75 degrees and sunny. No
That's
clouds.
nice.
It
Oh,
is
that's
nice.
beautiful. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. How's the garden going, Kathy, for this time of year?
It's doing fine. It's starting to wind down. We are having chilly nights, so things are starting to go a
Nice.
little bit more dormant, and we're starting to
That's
lose the
true.
leaves. But the cottonwoods along the river are gorgeous,
Mhm.
and we have leaves turning all around.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I think that's what people don't realize about New Mexico. It's like you've got four seasons in one state, depending on where you go. And you do have like the change of colors.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
no matter what, those big blue skies, unless it rains, which is rare, but those big blue skies that are beautiful. And do they stay for you throughout winter?
What, blue skies?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Oh,
Pretty
absolutely,
much.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, unless a storm is coming through.
yeah.
It's pretty much blue.
How
It's
was the?
here, what, 320 days a year.
We like that. We like
Mhm.
that. Sunshine is always good, and it's a warm sunshine. We could feel the difference. We drove from North Carolina out to here, Tucson, and we hit Texas. It was warm. We went through Alabama. It was warm, and we're like, okay, this is nice. Then we hit Texas, and we went, what happened? There were flash floods we were driving through, and then it got like in the 30s. We're like, that's it, hotel room now. It
Mhm.
got really cold, but as soon as we hit like outside of, we were still in. You're always in Texas for a long time when you're driving across, but the sunshine, you could feel it through the car, no matter how cold it really was. The sunshine, as soon as you hit New Mexico, and we greeted the giant road runner in Las Cruces. That's a must stop, at that one rest area. But the sunshine in the car, you could feel it, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. But back, when you're in the Midwest or you're in the northern parts of the country, and it's winter time, I don't care what you do, the sunshine is cold. It does not warm you up like it does in the West. It's wild, man.
Well,
So, and it's weird.
it's the joys of being at 5,000 feet.
Yeah,
The
but
UV is much more intense.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But
Mhm.
how was the hot air balloon festival? I know that's a big deal in October for you guys. It was
It
busy.
was wonderful. I just saw they had the largest attendance ever
Wow.
uh, at Balloon Fiesta. So it was over 800,000 people.
And the weather was outrageously good.
Oh,
There
yes,
were only two events that didn't happen because of wind.
because of wind. Yeah,
And that is a really good balloon fiesta.
yeah. I think that
Wow.
Mass Ascension one.
Mass
No,
Ascension one morning
one
and
morning.
then a balloon glow like the
Yeah.
second Thursday
Yeah,
or something.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were only two events that didn't go. So that's a really good balloon fiesta.
Yeah,
That's
and if people
fantastic.
are wanting to come to Balloon Fiesta next year, now's the time to be booking.
Mhm.
Really?
We'll fill up by the end of January, and all the B&Bs in town will fill up by mid-February.
Are you kidding me? That's how
Yeah.
big it is.
It's
Mhm.
huge. It's
Mhm.
huge.
I heard that you basically need to take shuttles around as well, or like
Yeah, there's a park and ride. There's so many people that go on the weekends. Yeah, on a really great day with beautiful weather, you can have up to 125, 130,000 people on the field.
oh
It's
man,
it's
that's
huge.
amazing.
It's
That's
huge.
Well,
Mhm.
it's interesting about Albuquerque. It has got so much that it's known for, like a hot air balloon capital, right? Flamenco capital,
Mhm.
mariachi music, good food, wine. Let's bring in the wine. You've
Lots
got
of
an old
chili.
town with a plaza that is really old
And
school New
and
Mexico.
and we're starting to be recognized as a place for food. A lot of the last year and a half, a lot of the food magazines are finding Albuquerque and
Good.
realizing what a great place it is for food.
Mhm.
I remember like the food. I don't think we had a bad meal. I mean, we had a really good time, and I liked going to the sawmill because there
Mhm.
were
Yes.
so many different restaurants in there. I know I bring it up all the time, but I
Mhm.
love food halls like that because you're supporting real small business, and that's what part of staying in a bed and breakfast is. It's a real experience versus,
Mhm.
here's your selfish check-in, like here, use your phone to check in kind of thing. And I know sometimes there's a place for that, but staying in a bed and breakfast is that true hospitality where we get to meet you guys and,
Mhm.
have a conversation. My gosh,
Mhm.
that's not on a phone or through Zoom, not knocking Zoom. I'm just saying, right? It's warm, it's personable, and the food hall is small people, it's the same thing with small business and
Mhm.
and
Right.
really good food and
Mhm.
beer. New Mexico beer. You guys have a lot of breweries too.
Do.
Oh, we do.
Do.
That's another thing Albuquerque is really coming on into is known for local breweries and brew pubs and all kinds of places, distilleries too.
Yeah. Distilleries are
Mm.
making a
Distilleries
big,
are making a big move in New Mexico.
so there's
Oh,
there's oh, I can't even count the number of distilleries there are. And they're doing really interesting things with gin and whiskey.
oh,
So it's really a great place to be.
Mhm.
sounds like we have to come back.
You
Yeah.
do?
Okay with me. All right. We'll see you in like a month, maybe sooner actually. But
Next time you're coming through.
I want to go back to Bottger Mansion. And I saw that you did a newsletter saying, about Bottger Mansion haunted? Yay, nay. Is it true?
Oh, yes.
I know how. Listen, come on. I want to touch on that, but I thought, Kathy, maybe you could give everyone kind of an overview of the history of Bottger Mansion because I think that's one of the main reason also to stay at the inn is that, I mean, the history, the people, the human history at that inn is
Mhm.
in it's unreal,
Mhm.
but real. Not the ghosts though; they're not real.
No, no, it comes up and usually in the fall a lot. Some people want to think that every old building is haunted and it's just not. I mean, we live here. So there's that. The house is actually was built in 1912 as a family home, and it's a little bit different architecture. It's American Foursquare, which had a brief period. So, you had Victorian and then Queen Anne, and then American Foursquare was like 1900 to about 1920 or so. And then you had the craftsman style houses in like the 1930s with some Art Deco in there. And then, of course, moving into the 40s and 50s and 60s were the one-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch. So we do have a number of American Foursquare homes. We're the only one here in Old Town. And at the time, it was built with a lot of modern conveniences because the thing was, if people had money to build a fairly nice fancy home, they wanted everything that they had back east. So there's a basement because there was a central heat furnace
wow.
in the basement. It had speaking tubes to the rooms. There was a dumbwaiter that went up from the butler's pantry up to the second floor. And it was the first residence in Old Town to have gaslight, I think.
Not in Albuquerque, but
Not in
in Old Town.
Albuquerque, but in Old
Old
Town.
Town.
Let's see, just a few things like that. But the and it was built actually, the property history goes back way even farther than that. Actually, it was built on the site of the Manuel Armijo House. He was the territorial governor of Nuevo Mexico when it
Oh,
was
wow.
part of Mexico.
Wow.
So the early 1800s, and then and there was a 40-room hacienda on this site with a central courtyard. And at one point, it was considered to be the grandest home in all of the territory. But over the
Right on.
decades, of course, we're talking early 1800s.
Mhm.
And then it fell into kind of decay, and then Charles Bottger's father, his parents were actually out here on a trip to New Mexico, and the property was for sale. And his father bought it, intending to come out and
Mm.
build his house on this property, but he passed away before they could happen. So Charles Bottger inherited the property, and then he was very fortunate. He married well, and his wife had inherited a mine from her stepfather.
Ooh.
And in 1909, that mine, suddenly they discovered ore, and he had enough money to tear down the Manuel Armijo house and build this grand
Wow.
American Foursquare.
He did well. I mean,
Yeah, he did
he
pretty well.
inherits the land and
Mhm.
then gets a wife with a good, should I say dowry? We can't say dowry, right?
Well,
That's
not really a dowry, but she was the stepdaughter of a man who had a lot of properties and interests. So yeah, she did well, and then therefore he did well.
what is it that led to so many famous people stopping by? How did that happen?
Well, the unfortunate thing is the house was built in 1912, but Charles Bottger probably had tuberculosis. He had what they called lung trouble. So back in the day, at one point, 50% of the population of Albuquerque had tuberculosis. That's why they were here. And so he built the house in 1912, but he died in 1914. And by that time, they had used up all of the money to build this big fancy house. And the mine was done, so there wasn't any more money coming in from the mine. And they were in society, if you want to say. They were well-known people, and their doings were always in the social column of the newspaper on page 4 and things like that. Anyway, the only thing that was acceptable for a widow and her 2 teenage daughters to do was run a boarding house. I mean, what do you do with a great big house, right?
Mm.
So they started it as a boarding house.
Ah.
And so that's why Machine Gun Kelly and his gang were here for a time, and Elvis Presley stayed here literally in 1956, just before Heartbreak Hotel became his first #1 hit across the country. He was on
Wow.
tour and did a concert in Albuquerque, went to Amarillo, did a concert there, came back to Albuquerque, did another concert, and he stayed at the Bottger Mansion.
Mhm.
And Janis Joplin?
Janis Joplin sometime in the 1960s. Frank Sinatra didn't stay here, but he apparently sang at a wedding in the courtyard.
Don't you wish that they, when they came over, that there was like wet cement, that their hands and whatever could be in their footprints?
Something.
That
A
would have
guest
been
book.
cool.
The guest sign,
Yeah.
the guest register. No,
Yeah.
there really isn't anything like that, unfortunately. But yeah, but
I feel like you guys should have like a museum going on in there too, because it's what it shows about not just the inn having this amazing human history, right? And multicultural, right, too, but
yeah.
also that what Albuquerque was like back in the day too, that
Mhm.
it, is you got to think also Route 66, there was travel along that highway and
Yeah.
musicians
Right.
did it
Right.
too. So
Exactly.
and then of course, 40 came in, Interstate 40, and so I don't know, I can't remember exactly when that switch over happened, but you're so central, you
Right.
know,
Right.
Mhm.
and that's not necessarily a switch over, but it was World War II, and it was Eisenhower who did that,
It
brought
was
in
it was in the 60s. It was in the late 60s when I-40 came through.
yeah, yeah. And thank goodness it's back. Route 66. I'm glad,
Route
it's
66 turns 100 years old in just less than 2 years.
2026.
2026, I'm sorry. 2026.
well, I think we should start celebrating.
We are.
The city is already ramping up for that.
Yes.
They have a neon sign refurbishing program.
Oh, we
And,
love that. We do. That's big.
Yep, and we have a brand new visitor center out on the west end. Actually, Route 66 runs about 20 miles through Albuquerque. So it starts
That's
out
pretty good.
at the base of Tejares Canyon on the east side, goes all the way through Albuquerque, right smack through downtown, right by us, and then about another 10 miles the other way on the west end. And they have a brand new Route 66 visitor center over on the west end.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That'll
Now-
Oh, not only that, but we have a guy who is actually he has been going out and buying up the neon signs that have been taken down from places, and he is actually in the downtown area creating a neon sign museum, and it's going to be outdoor. It's all outdoors.
Oh.
They're refurbishing them, and they're starting to put them up in this, basically a big vacant lot. And I think eventually the plan is to have the museum there so people can walk around, but like food trucks and beverages and all that kind of stuff too. So just a
That's
real fun
awesome.
place to go and see all that.
I think that's huge because so many are coming down and then
Mhm.
people buy them and put them in their bars and their basement, or
Yes.
it's kind of like a antique treasure. I
Mhm.
think I've told you before on the show, we have friends that come over and document neon signs across the country. They're in Holland.
Okay.
They come over here twice a year, and they're like, they're going away. And I said, well, should they be in a museum? He goes, no, they need to be back next to the businesses. but
Business
but
still
it's too
exists.
expensive.
So
It's
what has
expensive.
happened in some places in Albuquerque is, as Route 66 became popular and the traveling public was able to drive. I mean, with the advent of cross-country driving and more disposable income, all of these Route 66 motels were popping up, and some of them were built fairly quickly and not particularly of a durable construction. And over the years, they've been vacant or abandoned or whatever. And so some of the motels have been torn down, but the signs were left. And those are called, in Albuquerque, those are called orphan signs.
And they're also protected.
And they're protected. So they are actually now cultural landmarks, but you can actually adopt a sign. I think the city has a program for that because it costs a lot of money to refurbish the neon.
And
So
actually
the
to
signs
keep
are
it
still
running.
there,
Yeah.
and they may not work, but you can adopt a sign and pay to have it refurbished. And then, so it's a little odd though, because you've got a neon sign for a motel that's not a motel anymore.
But I think still when it's a cultural icon and a historic
Yes,
landmark, then people
right.
start going and following the trail like you guys have, and I
Right.
think it goes hand in hand with your public art, because that was
Yes.
one thing Nancy and I, okay, we're gonna go do all the public art. We can't do all the, what who do
There
we think
is
we
even
are?
more now, since you were
Yeah,
here.
since you were here, there's
Oh,
way
there's
more.
way more.
How many pieces do you think? I think New Mexico is one of the
Oh,
best
hundreds.
states for it.
Hundreds.
There's
Wow.
a part of the gross receipts tax that we pay goes to the arts. I think it's a
Really?
0.25%.
No, it's 1% for the arts is what the
Oh,
program
that's
is
right. It's
called.
1% for the art. That's
Oh,
right.
wow.
For the
And
arts.
so they hire artists to do public art, whether it's sculpture. They've been redoing 2nd Street on the north side of Albuquerque. And so they've got walkways, and they're putting up public art and landscaping things. So that's part of what that money goes for, is the public art.
That's awesome, because you have incredibles, like you were saying, there's sculptures, there's murals, and then there's just like moving art, moving sculptures, and mosaics, murals and sculpture. I love it. I think it just adds color, and gets, and also tells cultural stories in the history of and the natural history. Let's not leave out Petroglyph National Monument. We can't. We love it there. I'm still amazed that all these petroglyphs are just like in the middle of suburbia. It's like go for a hike and then you turn around, you forget when you're looking like where you are, like you forget because it's so fascinating. And that's, I mean, talk about public art. That's like the beginning of it, right?
Right.
It's like the newspapers back then. But so that's something for people to experience. But Steve, we touched on food in the food hall. Let's tell us what's been going on for breakfast at Bottger Mansion. What did people expect for breakfast for the fall or winter?
Well, we go over to our cranberry French toast on a
Ooh.
Grand Marnier sauce.
Oh,
Okay, word fall, right? And
mm.
tomorrow we're going to have our first pumpkin pancakes
With ginger butter.
with
Oh.
ginger butter.
Mm-mm.
Ooh.
So yeah, we're starting to gear up for fall now
Mhm.
and fall things. And of course green chili.
Oh,
Yeah,
the green chili. But now,
that's every day, right?
is pistachios? Is that that's the other side of New Mexico? Do you
Yeah,
use
yeah.
pistachios and pecans?
We use a lot of pecans, not so
Mhm.
much on pistachios. Although I'm looking at some stuff using pistachios, but yeah, New Mexico has a big pecan crop. It's one of the largest in the country,
Mm.
and then we do also have a fairly sizable pistachio crop. Mhm.
Yeah, because I know when we were driving through Las Cruces, I was like, oh
And
yeah,
exactly down
you know,
south.
I was like, oh, there we are. We've got all that happening, and so I was like, oh, I'm like pecan pie, but
Yeah.
pistachios would be fun for Christmas time because of the green,
Oh
you
Mhm.
yeah.
know.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
They're always good.
oh, have you ever done breakfast tamales? I'm just wondering if that's even a thing. Could you do? Would that
No, I
even
don't think
happen?
so. Tamales
Yeah,
are labor intensive.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
I've never heard of that. I mean, you've got
Breakfast.
breakfast tacos,
Well, some people do
Ooh.
breakfast enchiladas.
breakfast, which is just an enchilada with an egg on it. So,
But you know what? Honestly, like Nancy and I ran a bed and breakfast again for a week, about a few weeks ago. Because I
Mm.
don't know why we get roped into this, but it's our third time. And I think because our friends call every time we're drinking wine. And
there you go.
apparently they know what time we're drinking wine. And they're like, do you have your wine? Have you had a glass yet? Yes. Pour yourself another. And we should know when they say that what's coming next. But I think the first glass clears that out. And I don't know, we get roped into it. And every time I think of all the innkeepers we've been talking about on the show going, oh my gosh, you guys work so darn hard. It is, I mean, because I do all the rooms and then the breakfast, having to get the breakfast. Nancy has a whole new vocabulary that's not allowed on radio shows anymore because it's like 10 people all at once. And then
Right.
last minute, someone goes, well, I don't want to eat this thing anymore. I'm like, what? So the hospitality goes so far beyond what you realize as a guest, which is a good
Mhm.
thing, you know. But I have to tell you, every time we do this, I'm famished. I'm done. By the time our friends come back to their inn, I'm like, that's it. You have the keys. I'm done. I'm really going to go have a bottle of wine, not a glass, a bottle of wine. Because it's a lot of work, but it is highly rewarding. And to see people smile. There was a couple with their anniversary and making sure like everything was perfect, and I had to deliver the breakfast to their room with champagne, like, and they're
Mhm.
upstairs, like way upstairs. There's a Victorian mansion, and I'm going, why do we have Victorian mansions? Do we have to do this? But to see them being really happy and people talking at the breakfast table about what they experienced,
Mhm.
there's something about that for you guys, for each of you. What is it for you, Steve, running a bed and breakfast that makes you happy when it's really hard work? What is it that you go, this is cool?
It's when people appreciate what we're doing,
Mhm.
and how and what we can provide for them. It a lot of innkeepers are preserving um, structures that are historic.
Mhm.
A lot of them aren't on a national register or anything, but just being able to keep these houses um, um, functioning and looking great. That's a labor of love. That doesn't
Mhm.
it takes a lot of time and effort to make sure uh, they are still standing.
Mhm.
Otherwise, this building, if it wasn't a bed and breakfast, could very well not exist anymore.
Right. And it costs money to do it,
Mhm.
but I believe that it's also not just the building you're keeping the family history of the people who inhabited the building, but and keeping it alive. That's why I asked you about the history again, Kathy, because
Mhm.
I never tire of hearing these stories, even if I've heard them before, because it keeps us all fresh. And the buildings and their stories and the people's stories is part
Mhm.
of the integrity of what Albuquerque is for you. Like if it's in Taos, it's the same thing. These buildings are part of what makes that
That's right.
sense of place that we always talk about, of
Mhm.
a destination. If it
Right.
was all the same kind of little boxes on the hillside, then you don't have a destination,
Mhm.
That's right.
Exactly.
you know? Yeah. For
Exactly.
you, Kathy,
That's why,
what's the big, oh, go ahead.
that's
Go
why
ahead.
that's why the history of the house and the family who built it has always been so interesting to me, because the house, being an American Foursquare, is kind of an anomaly. Because
Mhm.
what, most of the houses here are the Pueblo style with the flat roofs and vigas and portals, and they're pretty much all brown, different shades of
Mhm.
brown or beige. So that's the standard architecture here. So this house really stands out as being different from that, but it also helps people put the house and the history in perspective, to know that there was an awful lot more going on here, that everything wasn't just the same. I mean, we have craftsman houses here, and we have Victorians, and so it's a real mix, and you get a sense of the development of Albuquerque, how it grew up. And you'll have one house right next to another, and there are different kinds of houses, so you understand that as that neighborhood was being built up over time, the architecture of the buildings reflects what was going on at that time. So it's
And
just
you've got color to the home as well, from the outside of it to the
Yeah.
inside, but it's not overwhelming color.
right.
And that's something where you go, oh, you know where you are.
Mhm.
It was it like that before? Is that something that you decided is, for the inn to have color?
The house being pink,
Pink.
that was after 1997. We know that. The house has been several different colors. At one time, when Julia Bottger Gallegos died in 1968, and she was quite a well-known person in Albuquerque, big obituary with her picture in the paper and all of that stuff. It was called the Yellow House with Blue Trim in Old Town. So at
Oh,
one point, it was yellow with blue trim. At one point, it was kind of a gray house with a different color blue trim. So I did want to tell you that since you all were here, we had the most amazing thing happen within a couple of week period. We had a guest who came, and she had stayed with her family here in 1998, and she had pictures.
oh, wow.
And then we got email from someone out of the blue, and he said, oh, when I was going to UNM, I lived in that house. And that was in 1970, 71,
No way.
something like that.
So
And
he came home.
he had come back on a visit. So he'd finished at UNM, gone back to New York, came out on a visit in 1974 and took pictures, and he sent them to me. Oh
No
my
way.
goodness.
There's a wreck.
It was a wreck.
Oh,
Real
no way.
bad.
So you're
It was
feeling pretty
terrible.
good now, right?
Yeah, it
Just
was.
looking
The
at it.
house had gotten sold out of the family. It had been vacant for a number of
Years, yeah.
years. There
Oh,
was some,
wow.
they had a leaky roof, there was water damage, all kinds of things. And he said he actually got to live here for free. The deal with whoever owned it at the time was that he and the other people that lived here were to work on fixing up the house, and they did.
Oh, okay.
Not to a pristine condition, but basically cleaning it up and getting it habitable again. And so they did some of that, but the pictures that we got were just amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic that you have that history to
Yeah.
add to your collection. You see, I told you you need a museum room. Yeah. But I think it goes back to what you were saying, Steve, about, keeping these buildings intact,
They're so close to we're so close to losing them at any given moment. That's the problem. If they go vacant and fall into disrepair, it doesn't take long
Right.
for a municipality like Albuquerque to say it becomes a nuisance.
Right.
Oh, that has to be
Properties
taken down.
They get torn
They
down.
get torn down.
Mhm.
Even
Well,
if
look at Sleepy Sleepy Lobo in? They were on the show. Is it Sleepy
Mm.
Lobo?
Yeah,
Yeah, they were on it, and look what they did to
isn't
renovate
that
this
Yeah.
beautiful?
building.
Didn't they do a great
It's a
job?
lovely
It,
little
from what I
property.
could see, I haven't been there yet. I always
Oh, yeah.
put yet on the end if we haven't been somewhere, because you never know. But I mean,
Oh.
they really just, put their heart and soul into that
They sure
property.
did.
It's really charming, and it's really nice to see a house that was built in a different time period, and
But
to
it's different
see,
than yours, and
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
not
yeah,
that
to
far from
see
you.
what were the
Yeah.
architectural elements that were being put in houses at that time, as opposed to 1912.
Right.
Mm. And that's interesting. I mean, because you're not that far. Well, to me, nothing's really
Oh,
far anymore.
we're about 3 miles away.
Oh, that's nothing. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can walk there. It's a well, maybe. I don't know. Depends.
What's up on the
Yeah, but it seems that they're by the university, so their
Yeah.
appeal is to a lot of people going to see their their
Mhm.
kids
Yeah, they're
going
right
to
across.
college.
They're right across the street from the university.
But
Mhm.
that's to me like it's such a different kind of clientele that guests that will stay, and I
Mhm.
love that kind of blend in a community where there's something for everyone, and for them, I think it's really nice for even the students to know some place where their parents can stay
Mhm.
and even have like a kind of a welcoming overnight before they, here you are, go be an adult now. You're out on your own. It's kind of a cozy thing to have a B&B that's part of that
Mhm.
makeup. Because
Yes.
often it's not, so that's a really nice. I think it's so cool to see these historic buildings, and not all inns are historic, but I would say about 70-80%.
Mhm.
I'd say about good 80%
Mhm.
are historic and all have kind of stories. And then for your guests, they're leaving their story as part of the mix as well, which is
Mhm.
which is a cool thing. So, but let's talk a little bit. It's fall, November, Thanksgiving's coming, and then we're getting into that Christmas holiday season. And I'm going to guess that a lot of holidays, I'm not going to guess, I know there's a lot of holiday shopping that can be done in Albuquerque. And so,
Well,
definitely, if you're going to listen, we're so against all that Black Friday stuff where everybody beats each other up over a TV in a big box store. I mean, what is that? I
Well, it's
mean,
all online now. You don't beat anybody up anymore. It's
no,
all
you
online.
go online.
I don't know, but then there's
Online.
websites of okay, I'll behave. But but
It's not quite
you know
the
what I
same though. The whole
yeah.
thing about going and shopping the Friday after, or the weekend after Thanksgiving, it was about being out. It's a festive time. You dress up in your Christmas sweater, well, unless it's 75 degrees.
Yeah.
You dress up in your Christmas sweater and you go out for lunch, and the decorations are up. So it's
I
all
like that.
about
No, it's
that.
nice and calm. That sounds
Right.
fun.
And just getting into the Christmas spirit and all that stuff. So in that respect, online shopping is not a good substitute for that.
But we do have holiday stroll coming up.
But there's a lot of holiday events. Boy, there's a ton of holiday events coming up in Albuquerque. So there's the Twinkle Light Parade, basically kicks it off the weekend after Thanksgiving. The Old Town Holiday Stroll is December 1st. The Nob Hill Shop and Stroll is the next Friday. We've got Mariachi Christmas, if you really want to get in the,
Oh, I do.
oh yeah, it's really
I
fun.
love mariachi music.
The Botanic Garden does
Oh.
the River of Lights the entire time, right after
It's-
Thanksgiving up until New Year's.
Yeah.
Beautiful
It's in the top
outdoor
10.
light displays.
It's in the top 10 in the country for light
Yeah.
displays.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that in your botanic garden, I remember going because we saw you. It was not quite spring yet,
Mhm.
but the poppies were in bloom, and there's like a Japanese garden, and it was gorgeous. I need to get
Mhm.
them on the show because we just did a recording, actually airing a couple days after your show, on Sunday, and we were talking about botanical gardens and theme parks and things like that across the country for holidays, and we were all talking about during winter and late fall, people tend to like, oh, well, botanical gardens are only spring and summer. And that is so not true.
Mhm.
Botanical gardens in winter, there's a magical thing to them. And yours is so, I don't know, yours is charming. It's like it's cute. It's not overly big, but it is actually pretty big. Actually, when I
Mhm.
remember,
Mhm.
we had to walk off Steve's breakfast.
Mhm.
And that you have to do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
And it's part of the biopark. The botanical
Yeah.
garden is part of the biopark, which has the aquarium and then the zoo. And the zoo just opened a new exhibit, African exhibit. for the African animals. And they're working on an Australian exhibit now. And it's one of the top zoos in the country. And that's all you can walk from one to the other. It's really great.
It's an easy place to go, park, and you can go to 3 different attractions all
Yes.
in one, and it's not far from Sawmill that I remember. I thought it was pretty,
It's not
everything's
far
pretty.
from Old Town at all. It's only about a half an
No,
hour.
and
Mhm.
Old Town, that's what I was gonna say. It's so easy from when you stay at the inn at Bottger. You just walk down the street and like the gazebo there in the plaza.
Mhm.
Do they have performances that happen in the gazebo?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
For holiday stroll, there'll be music all day long, all over
Oh.
Old Town and on the gazebo, and then there'll be luminarias all over Old Town. So it's a really a beautiful time to be here. And if we're lucky, it snows. If we're
What?
lucky, if we're lucky, or if we're lucky on Christmas
Christmas
Eve,
Eve.
which is more likely. We also Old Town has luminarias all over for Christmas Eve as well.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
That's a tradition in Albuquerque to
Mhm.
come through Old Town to see the luminarias and to be here on
Mm.
Christmas Eve.
And you have a lot of shopping in Old Town and art galleries and restaurants. And
Mhm.
I love the Old Town. I thought the first day we got there, we went and had dinner downtown, and I looked at Nancy. I'm like, well, we don't have to go anywhere else. We're parked. We could just.
just walk.
Oh,
Mhm.
speaking of that, can people I know there's Uber and Lyft and everything, but can people is there transport that takes you around, or should you get an Uber to go to other places from you if they don't want to drive?
If they're here without a car,
Mhm.
yeah, Uber. The bus transportation is we do have the ART, which is runs down Central. That'll get you to the downtown University, Nob Hill areas, and that's free.
Mm.
And that's fairly quick. But to get to other places in Albuquerque, it's either by car or Uber.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And
Yeah.
it's not hard, air flying in is not far, right?
We're
No,
15 minutes, yeah. Mhm.
that's easy. That's it. Do you see people coming back from Europe this
Oh,
year
yeah,
after
we've had
COVID?
quite a few people now coming in from overseas. Absolutely. From Australia, Europe, Canada, yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
we're seeing them come
Awesome.
back.
Mhm.
Yay, yay. They love the Southwest, and especially in the summer,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah, they'll do the temperatures, man. They'll do it.
We're starting to see people do the Route 66. People are starting to do Route 66 again.
That is building up.
Fantastic.
It used to
Yes.
be pretty
Mhm.
strong, and COVID came along, and of course, and then it kind of died out, but now it's coming back strong.
Mhm.
So we're seeing a lot of people stop. They stop with us, but they're going from Chicago to Santa Monica, or they're doing a part of it. Some people do it over, 3 or 4 years.
Mm.
Not everybody can drive straight from Chicago to Santa Monica.
Well, there's so much along the way though. So,
See,
so, if you drive the whole thing in one shot, there's a lot of things you're probably going to miss.
Yeah, yeah, that
But
is,
there are people who will take like a piece of it. In fact,
Mhm.
we had a father and son and they were doing Route 66.
Mhm.
And they were taking a segment of it every year, and they said it was going to take them like 5 years but they wanted to do everything along the
Yeah.
whole route.
It's so hard. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we're on the road full time, Nancy and I, because you can't, we are doing Route 66, and we've done a lot of the portions of it, and then sometimes we didn't even realize we're on it, because we're
Mhm.
also doing the Jefferson Highway, we're doing the Pony Express Trail, and then we start getting into all the historic trails, which
Right.
means you're just you can't do it all, but sometimes there's historic landmarks and attractions that do all, like they'll be in like one spot, all kinds of things happen in this one spot, and we're like, oh, thank you. But I love the fact that you can keep coming back to an area to see, oh, I missed this part, because there's no way. And I mean, we do this full time, and you just can't do it all. But that's the beauty of road trips,
Mhm.
is that you can stop the car, even if it's, sometimes even national parks, like when we were did Petroglyph, we were in Albuquerque for way too short of a time. But do what you can. Like we did one little trail. We couldn't do all the hiking trails we wanted, but next time we come back, we're going to go to a longer one, so you can keep
Mhm.
adding to that and discovering more. You just can't do it all, but you certainly can die trying to do it. That's a good way to go out.
All right.
I'm
So
not ready for that though.
since you were here though, The rail yard has opened another building.
Oh,
We have at the rail yard in Albuquerque, when it was built, was what, the largest rail?
The engineering
And-
building.
yes,
It was the largest
rail
steel.
yard.
No, it was the largest steel and glass Art Deco building in the world when it was built.
wow.
It could, it's an amazing history. We could go for an hour on that all by itself. But that engineering building could overhaul 19 engines simultaneously and manufacture every part of the engine right there on the yards. So these were the largest yards west of the Mississippi.
Wow, that's huge. And for Art Deco, 'cause look at that as another,
Mhm.
you know, architectural gem. I mean, so you have a little bit of everything going on in Albuquerque when it comes to architecture.
Yeah.
So the city owns that property, and they are in a very long process of renovating all of those buildings. So they've renovated another building. So on weekends from April through October, every Sunday they have the rail yard market, which is a combination of farmers market and crafts and local products. And they have live music and lots of food. And then in December, I think it's December 9th and 10th, they have a huge holiday market. So,
cool.
and it's really expanding that whole area. So now they've got 2 buildings that they've renovated, and there's a very large courtyard area and paved area around that, and it's really expanding. It's really becoming a really wonderful place to go on a Sunday and see all sorts of things.
And it's also where the Wheels Museum is, and that's a museum devoted to railroading. Is right.
Really? You know, because I know we're actually doing some special stories coming up on rail history, because if you're into railroad history, man, I tell you, all my friends that are the railroaders are like,
They love it.
Yeah.
they are enthusiastic is an understatement, is, you know,
Yes.
they're into it. So we're
Well,
looking
you
at
know,
that's
we
another
have
thing to
people
do.
that we have the railroad room, the Hazeldean, which is our railroad room, and as
Right.
homage to the railroad, and people specifically want that room because of it.
Yeah.
And we just did a remodel on that, and we now have this amazing photograph of the engineering building that done with a fisheye lens. It's just an amazing photograph in that building, in that room over the bed, and it's really changed the tenor of the room, and I think it's even more appealing than it was to railroaders.
Oh, wow. Because we're going to have to do a show just on railroad history, but then I know that just will end up being its own show or something crazy.
Yeah. That's a series of shows.
That
it is. Because then you get into the Harvey House girls and, you know, the Harvey House history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
all
we had a friend who passed a couple years ago who was a Harvey girl right here in
No way.
Albuquerque. Yes. So, you know, there's still some folks still around that were actually part of that. Yeah.
No way. That's so cool. I mean, that history is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that is some hospitality history, you know, that people should know about and seek it out. And it's all throughout the Southwest, which is it's fascinating for sure. Wow. So a lot of things, but before you go, I want to talk about nature, because it is the migration season. And so when is Bosque, am I saying this correctly? The Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge?
Yeah, they're well, the cranes are back.
Okay, so you could go now.
Yeah, well, they start showing up towards the mid-October. They started showing. And the Festival of the Cranes is actually December 6th through the 9th down in Bosque del Apache. But that's not just the cranes. That's hundreds of thousands of waterfowl in there. There's
Canada geese and all kinds of
Snow
ducks.
geese. I bet you get
geese,
snow geese
ducks. There's so many different varieties. It's amazing. Plus the cranes. I was just this morning, I was out riding on the Bosque here, and there were cranes in the field right next to the path. I was
No way.
Oh, you don't have to go down to the
you don't have to go there.
It's a beautiful National Wildlife Refuge, but you don't have to go all the way down there just to see the cranes, because they take off in the morning and they fan out all along the Rio Grande River, looking for fields and feeding areas. And we have them right here in Albuquerque. I mean, like 3 miles from us.
At the Rio Grande Nature
the-
Center.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There are actually fields all along the Rio Grande where they grow grain, and that grain is grown specifically for the cranes and the waterfowl, and they knock it down in the fall
Yeah.
for them to eat. And that's why that's what they're grown for, is
Yeah.
for the cranes.
Wow. So where were we when we went to Tingley Beach, right? So that's not
Oh,
too
that was
far.
on the
And there's a
bus.
park. So that's
Yeah.
on the bus, because I remember seeing a bunch of cyclists on a trail
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's where I
and a
was.
railroad. Huh.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
gone now. They took that out, and now that's a walking
Oh.
path. I think they're getting ready
Okay.
to put a people mover in there now. To move people from the biopark to the zoo.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It
Yeah.
was part of, and that's where
Those
we
are-
went there because of the public art, but there were
Yeah.
geese and there were birds in the pond.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
know?
we have them year round. Some stay here, but right now, all the migrations are coming in, so we're seeing dozens of different types of ducks and geese. And other.
Better scurry. No, sorry. Oklahoma. Sorry. Ducks and geese. What,
And we
I can't
have
remember the words.
we have actually the Valle del Oro
Yes,
is a new national wildlife refuge.
yes,
It's in Albuquerque. It's about what, 8 miles or so
Yeah, in the South
south of
Valley.
here in the South Valley. And they are developing that. So that's a lot of open space right now, but they're doing things like creating marsh area.
that was,
Ooh.
it was originally a wetland. And then Creamland Dairy took it.
Was a
and
dairy
It was a dairy farm.
Mhm.
And so they developed it that way, and now they're going to bring it back to a wetland.
Oh, restore the
So
habitat.
they're-
That's awesome.
They're putting in things, native landscaping, and they're putting in pollinator areas, pollinator gardens, and the wetlands, and just they've got a multi-phase plan down there.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty cool.
right now it's like a big open canvas with just slow but steady work going on. But it'll be interesting to watch that over the years, how that
Yeah.
develops.
And they
I
just
want to go now.
and they just opened up a path, a bike trail to it, just a
Oh.
couple weeks ago. So you can get down there fairly easily now.
That's
on a-
exciting because they do really good jobs as the National Wildlife Refuges on
Mhm.
pollinator gardens. Just
Yes.
a lot of them that we go to have them. They often have like a drive. So if you aren't a hiker, there's like a scenic drive or a wildlife drive you can do in wildlife refuge. I don't know if that'll happen there, but to watch a restoration project, I think will be really cool for people to see how restoration can work. You
Mhm.
know, because we need to reclaim a lot of our land in that way and bring it back to where it was, especially, if there's wetlands, it's a huge importance, especially in the Southwest,
Mhm.
to get some of that wetland habitat back. And okay, now I have to come back again.
Yes,
Mhm.
How
absolutely.
many times have I have to keep coming back? See, we just keep going in circles. But I love that they have a bike path, because I think that's the other thing when people, take a break. It's
Mhm.
nice
Mhm.
to just get on a bicycle, not saying that I can do it. You don't want that. Maybe after the glass of wine. No, I'm just kidding. But to be
No,
able to be free away from phones and computers and just be out.
and it's very easy to rent a bicycle here in Old Town.
Oh,
That is-
cool.
And in fact, we have
Uh-huh.
a package for that, for their tour, or we can arrange for you to rent bicycles, and there's a lot of places you can bike to here. It's really it's
Awesome.
really nice.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, it's always good to have you on the show. Thank you for coming back. And happy Thanksgiving to you both.
Oh,
And to
Happy
your
Thanksgiving.
guests.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it's already here?
I know.
I mean, wasn't it just summer the last time we talked? What happened? What
Yeah, we'll be
happened?
decorating for Christmas
Supposed
in
to-
just a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
Really? Now, what happens also like for Thanksgiving? Do you have guests over the holidays?
Oh,
that
yeah.
Oh,
come in?
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're pretty full.
No rest for you.
Not yet.
Yeah, sounds like you need a little bicycle ride into the new wildlife refuge.
There you go. There you
I
go.
love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Again, go to Bottger.com. It's Bottger, Bottger.com. And of course, we're here every second Thursday talking about New Mexico bed and breakfast and destinations and events. So keep up with us at bigblendradio.com, but plan your trip. There's bed and breakfast all over the land of enchantment. So go to nmbb.org. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take care.
Gracious hosts, unique lodging, and tasty cuisine. New Mexico bed and breakfasts are New Mexico true. Our innkeepers are as special as New Mexico, and we're sharing their stories. Read about them and plan your trip at nmbba.org.